Hello, and welcome to Day by Day True Crime Stories, the podcast where we explore a different crime or justice milestone from this day in history. I'm your host, Kona Gallagher, and today is September 29th. On this day in 1913, a famous engineer finished dinner, walked the deck of a cross-channel steamer, and vanished before dawn. In the morning, his bed was made, his nightshirt was folded, and his hat and overcoat were tucked beneath the rail. The missing man was Rudolf Diesel, inventor of the engine that powered half the world, and his disappearance became one of the 20th century's great mysteries. Today, we're talking about the disappearance and death of Rudolf Diesel. Let's get started. As dusk fell in Antwerp on September 29, 1913, the Great Eastern Railway steamer SS Dresden took on late passengers for an overnight run to Harwich, the sea link to London. Among them was Rudolf Christian Karl Diesel. He was 55, internationally famous, and, by most accounts, exhausted. He wasn't taking a vacation. For him, London meant meetings, patents, and money. After boarding, he found his cabin, had dinner, and was seen walking the deck. Around 10 p.m., he told a steward to wake him at 6:15 the next morning as they neared Harwich. And that was the last confirmed sighting of him. Morning brought a puzzle instead of a passenger. When the steward entered the cabin to awaken Diesel, the bed hadn't been slept in. His nightshirt had been laid out, and his watch sat where it could be reached from the pillow. Up on deck, crew members found his hat and folded overcoat tucked beneath the after-deck rail, as if he had simply stepped off the boat. The sea had been calm the night before, no one heard a splash, and no alarm had been raised. Two associates who were also on the crossing, later named as George Carrolls and Alfred Luckman, recalled having an ordinary evening with Diesel. They had dinner, they talked, and nothing suggested that he would fail to answer his wake-up call. By the time the Dresden reached Harwich, the captain had ordered a search and telegraphed ahead. On shore, headlines turned a missing passenger into a mystery with a famous name. Diesel hadn't grown up in the factories that his invention would one day transform. He was born in Paris in 1858 to German parents. When the Franco-Prussian War erupted in 1870, the family was expelled from France. Young Rudolf was sent to relatives in Augsburg, then on to Munich, where he excelled in engineering studies. His inspiration was Carl von Linde, the refrigeration pioneer whose lectures captivated him. Diesel joined Linde's Paris works and, by his early 20s, was managing the plant. A transfer to Berlin followed, and a lesson that patents produced under Linde's roof would not belong to him. In private, Diesel chased a radical idea, an engine that used heat and pressure, not a spark, to ignite fuel. One experiment nearly killed him. A prototype expansion engine using ammonia vapor exploded, leaving him seriously injured and dealing with lasting health issues. Yet, the setback only strengthened his resolve to make something better. From 1893 to 1897, in partnership with Machine and Fabric Augsburg, today's MAN, Diesel refined his vision. In February 1897, a prototype finally proved itself under load at roughly 26% efficiency, which was more than double many steam plants of the day. The industry took notice. Sulzer in Switzerland built one of the first licensed engines in 1898. In America, beer magnate Adolphus Busch secured rights and pushed commercialization. At first, the engines powered factories and pumps, but soon they moved ships and locomotives. Diesel became both a name and a noun. But he wasn't just an engineer. In his book, Solidarismus, Diesel imagined technology lifting up small producers instead of empowering monopolies. It was idealistic and often clashed with reality, but it shaped how he saw himself as an inventor and a reformer. By the early 1900s, he was wealthy and celebrated. But by 1913, things were going downhill. Costly investments in overvalued property had left him heavily in debt. That financial pressure helps explain what his family later found: a small cross penciled on September 29th in his diary, and a sealed packet that he gave his wife Martha before leaving. When she opened it, she found 20,000 marks in cash and bank statements showing near-empty accounts. And this trip wasn't just about business. Diesel was on his way to meet with the British Admiralty about naval uses for his engine. On the eve of war in Europe, that interest carried enormous weight. 10 days after Diesel vanished, a Dutch pilot steamer working the coast spotted a body near the mouth of the Eastern Scheldt. The remains were badly decomposed beyond recognition. In heavy seas, the crew did what was then common. They recovered personal effects from the body, so an ID card, coin purse, eyeglass case, pocket knife, and a pillbox, and then returned the body to the water. On October 13, 1913, Diesel's son Eugen identified the items as his father's. With that, the family accepted that Rudolf Diesel was gone. The press, both then and now, stumbled over the ambiguity. Some newspapers reported the body had been recovered, others only said that the belongings had. The truth was that the family had his effects, but the sea kept his remains. What the estuary offered was proof of presence, but not proof of how he died. The first explanation to gain traction was suicide. Diesel had left that sealed packet for his wife. His finances were dire. His diary bore a small cross on the day that he vanished, and he was known to suffer from bouts of depression and insomnia. The seas were also calm that day, and taken together, those details convinced many contemporaries and later historians that Diesel had taken his own life. But another theory emerged immediately: murder. Diesel wasn't just traveling for patents, he was tied to those naval negotiations as well. And that made him valuable and vulnerable. Some speculated that German agents killed him to prevent expertise from reaching the Royal Navy. Others pointed to industrial rivals. The motives were easy to imagine. The problem was evidence, because none ever surfaced. And then there was the most romantic theory: defection. Newspapers floated rumors that Diesel had slipped away to Canada, alive under British protection. Later writers suggested that he may have defected to aid Britain in the coming war. But again, he never appeared on any other passenger lists, payroll records, or photographs. Nothing placed him anywhere after that night. So the record remained what it was: an empty bed, a folded coat, a cross in a diary square, and a handful of belongings recovered from the sea. Suicide was supported by circumstance, murder was possible but unproven, and defection was a story without any evidence at all. Even the Dresden carried its own eerie ending. The steamer that carried Rudolf Diesel was later requisitioned by the Royal Navy and renamed HMS Louvain. In 1918, during the war Diesel had feared, it was torpedoed by a German submarine and sank in the Aegean Sea. In the months after his disappearance, newspapers swung between portraying Diesel as a secure millionaire inventor and revealing his family's financial distress. Meanwhile, the engine that bore his name spread through navies, railways, and factories. The technology thrived even as the inventor's fate remained unsolved. Now, more than a century later, Rudolf Diesel's engine has become one of the defining machines of the modern world. But the man himself, on that September night in 1913, remained exactly where the sea left him: missing. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Day by Day True Crime Stories. If you found this story compelling, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It'll help us grow. And be sure to join me tomorrow as we explore another significant event in true crime history. Until then, stay safe, and remember that behind every headline is a life worth remembering. Day by Day True Crime Stories is a Little Monster production.
Hey, you can do it!